today we're talking in this challenge, overall the challenge is around healing childhood wounds that are preventing female leaders from living a big life, living their destiny, and making more money, and building a leadership company. Because I am here to create female millionaires. I believe that women will be the most potent force on the planet economically, globally, and politically. And I think more resources, financial resources, need to be in the hands of women or the feminine, because we will make different decisions for this planet and for humanity. And I believe that you're one of those women. The thing about us women is so many of us had some kind of adversity in our childhood that broke our heart and actually is preventing us from living as big as we can. It seems that it just affects us more than it affects the masculine or men, because they weren't conditioned in the same way that women were. And so it's really like my guides are telling me it is time for women to heal this piece. It is really time in the collective consciousness for the feminine to heal the heartbreak so that she can, live a big life, like live her destiny, because we came here with very special assignments, okay? So one of the things that plagues women the most is codependency, and that's what I want to talk about today. It's related to being emotionally unavailable and to being avoidant. It's interesting because we talk a lot about avoidance if you've done any relational work. A lot of people, like through failed relationships or being with the, say, wrong type of partner, we'll just say men in this case, if you're hetero, if you're not, then just fill it in. But the thing is, like, so many of us are familiar with this concept of being or attracting emotionally unavailable or avoidant to intimacy partners. And the interesting thing is, if we are attracting that, we are likely also that. And that's really hard to see because so many of us women on the outside, we crave deeper intimacy. And yet we don't have it. And that's because deep down, we are actually unavailable and avoidant to intimacy. And I want to carve for you right now, if that speaks to you, if you understand that, if that's an experience you've had in relationship, that you're also likely experiencing the same with your relationship, with your money and business. You're likely unavailable to being intimate with the relationship with money and business. And so this is an aspect of codependency. Codependency means that you source your love from outside, okay? You learn to source your love from outside, and therefore you become codependent on something else to fill your needs, to fill you up. It doesn't come from within, it comes from without. And I want to explain to you how this happens, okay? If you haven't listened to Challenge Day 1, go back and listen to that, because I share a little bit more of my early story, which shares for you how this happened for me. And I'll probably mention a little bit of it today, but like if you want more, go back to yesterday, because that's when I share more about what happened for me as a child, which you may be able to relate to, and then how I developed some of these patterns, and then how I healed these patterns, which is why we're here. All right, so what happens is when our emotional needs weren't met as a child. Let me give you an example. This is not a personal example, it's just a general example that I think most people can get. Say you're the oldest child, you're maybe 4 or 5 or 6 years old, and you go to school and something happens at school, and it's kind of like sad, or someone bullies you, or someone's mean to you, or the teacher's mean to you, or like just something kind of not a huge deal, but you come home from school and you're quite sad about it, and you just want your mom, and you walk in the door and you're like, mommy, 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 and mommy has been all day with your younger brother, and your younger brother is really ill. Like, he's really ill and he's throwing up and has diarrhea, and your mom is super worried about whether he's gonna be okay. And so when she hears you go, mommy, 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 and I'm like needy, she in the moment goes like, I can't right now, go play, right? And we can all understand what she was worried about, what she's going through. Like, this is how no parent can really be perfect, because we're all just human, right? So she didn't mean to traumatize her child, but in that moment, when the child needed the mother and the mother wasn't able to meet the need, there is a moment of trauma. There's a wound that happens there where, depending on the child, but for most of us, we could get the message that our needs don't matter. Our needs don't matter. And so when our emotional needs weren't met as a child, we develop a wound around our needs. So a lot of us then grow up feeling that we have too many needs and we're too much and we're too needy, and many people keep reflecting back to us that we're too much and we're too needy, right? We keep actually attracting people in our life that say that to us, that reflect that back to us. So a piece of us at that moment that we were the child and that happened, a piece of our kind of psyche and our soul and our being fragmented, meaning like it stopped growing. It just like couldn't process. So say you were 5 and the piece of you fragments, your needs weren't met. And this is really because you weren't emotionally attuned to. Someone wasn't emotionally attuned to you in the highest degree, which again, no shame and no blame on anyone else. Some of us have, a lot of you have been sharing in yesterday's challenge and even in your message to join the group, like some of the very severe traumas that you've had. I'm talking, this is a slight example, like a slight traumatic example. So you can imagine if you have more severe trauma, it's a much deeper wound, that needs attention right now, okay? So here's my point here. When that happens, we actually don't learn how to meet our own needs, because we learn how to meet our own needs by learning how our parents meet our needs. So if that situation happens over and over and over again, where we have a need, we have an emotional need, we have an affection need, we have a love need, we have some kind of need, and our parent is not there, doesn't have the capacity to meet us, worse, punishes us or ridicules us or criticizes us for what we need, we develop a wound that goes deeper and deeper and deeper. That wound includes, as we grow up as an adult, we don't know how to meet our own needs because no one showed us how to meet our own needs. So what happens then is we start to disassociate from our body. The pain is so much when that happened that we don't even know how to process. We start to intellectualize, move into our head, and we start to analyze and use our masculine energy, and we even become fragmented on our attention level. We sort of start to zone out and numb out. We don't have the ability to process because that wound fragmented a piece of us at that time. So we actually don't have the capacity to meet our own needs, which is a really important point here. When that happens, no matter how independent we grow up to be, we still have a savior complex, meaning we want someone else to come in and save us because we really don't know how to meet our own needs, our heart needs, our love needs, and our financial needs. We don't know how to be sort of this is what maturity is. When you learn how to do this, then your soul and your mind and your whole being is sovereign. It's grown up. It gets how to meet its own need. And so that's what's happening here. When you don't learn from your parents how to be highly attuned, they show you, they should have showed you how to be highly attuned to yourself. And if you didn't get that, you literally didn't learn how to do it for yourself. And so as you grow into adulthood, you don't have the neural pathways to your own needs. So therefore, it's actually not even possible for you to meet your needs because you don't know how to meet your needs. You don't even know what your needs are. And I'll get into boundaries tomorrow, but needs and boundaries are in bed together, okay? And so we grow up then because we don't know how to meet our needs. The only thing that we know is to look outside of us for someone to save us or something to save us. And this is codependency. That means we get into relationships where we kind of hide ourselves, but we secretly hope this person is going to save us from all of the pain that we have just been too afraid to feel. And we also do this with money. We hope that money is just going to kind of magically come along and save us because we need it. And so we don't develop a very intimate relationship with money. We don't know how to meet our own needs. We're scared of it. We don't know what we need to do, on a mature level to meet our own financial needs, okay? So we end up living that out continually, this whole paradigm, by attracting people, avoidant, unavailable lovers, and circumstances. And this is where we get into business: procrastination, resistance, hiding, confusion, fear of tech, fear of any of the things that you need to do to get your business going, saying, I'm not good at that, I don't know how to do that. They keep wanting to reflect back to us this wound. Yesterday I touched a little bit on how we constantly, like, our soul is so intelligent, our highest self is so intelligent that it keeps presenting circumstances to give you an opportunity to heal the wounds. But most of us don't see it, like that. We see that like life is happening to us more than we're creating life, right? And so the same thing with this. If you're experiencing feast or famine, ups and downs, times where you can make a lot of money and then times when you don't have a lot of money and you struggle and you strive and you hustle and you go up and down, it's everything to do with your relationship with money, which is a relationship with meeting your own needs. And this goes back to even yesterday's content, which is likely a lot of times because you don't know how to meet your own needs, because you don't even know what your needs are. The little girl of you is still 5 and she's frustrated and she does not know what to do. And when children don't know what to do or don't know how to get their needs met, they throw tantrums. And then the tantrum can be either you go into hiding, right? Or you self-sabotage and self-destruct and do something that kind of sabotages your success. It's just the little girl in you trying to figure out how to get her needs met. So most women right now on the planet who are entrepreneurs, especially the Divine Feminine Collective, if you're living in poverty consciousness, it is because these wounds are running the show. And it's like my mission to bring light to these these wounds, so that we can all like move forward. I don't want to continue to talk about wounds and traumas like forever and ever and ever, and I don't think you should. I don't think you should continue to perpetuate that consciousness. The problem is we've been spiritually bypassing this stuff for so long. Everyone telling us to just affirm away or meditate and love and light and it'll just go away, but it will not. It will not go away that way. There's somatic healing that needs to happen within the wounds, that's both intellectual and somatic at the body level, somatic being body. And without doing that, those wounds will continue to be what drives your ability to be out there in the world and giving your offers and living the kind of life that you dream of. Okay? So if you're not facing the truth of your financial situation, if you're not getting the skills to grow your business, if you're procrastinating on what you know is possible for you and the steps that will take you to get there, this is the same as women who act avoidant or anxious in relationship. If your needs are not being met, I just like to correlate it with relationship. If your needs are not being met by a man, for example, or in relationship, the wounded little girl gets triggered, and it's the same thing with money and business. If your needs are not being met, for example, or you're feeling fear around being seen, or you put yourself out there and then something happens to trigger you, the wounded little girl of you gets triggered, and she either chases in a relationship or she shuts down. And this is what's happening in business for most female leaders. You're either chasing the money or totally avoiding the money. Chasing the business success or totally avoiding it. Don't you see women out there, right? Are you getting this? Don't you see women out there all the time? They're either like totally not doing what they know they came here to do because they just feel like, paralyzed. Or there are other women who like put on their masculine pants and they're like out there hustling and doing it. And they might have the money success, right? But they're still not doing it from a sovereign place, which can be so much easier and so much more flow and so much more healing and so much more wholeness and so much more pleasure with that way. And that's what we're standing for in the online temple school for the divine feminine. So most feminine leaders find themselves hustling, which is chasing, or paralyzed in their business, experiencing and perpetuating cycles of feast and famine and nervous system trauma. So these are both codependent behaviors. They're not being able to fill our own cups, which essentially when you become a sovereign queen, when you do the healing on these wounds and you come into sovereignty, not that you're not sovereign already, but like clearing up the wounds of the feminine is really necessary to step into, queendom, into your womanhood. Then you're able, when you do that, you're able to fill your own cup and you know how to meet your own needs. And this number one requires you to develop a relationship with your needs and then work with the little girl of you that tries to come in and sabotage or paralyze you or, get scared. It's just developing a relationship with her, which we talked a lot about yesterday. So not being able to fill our own cups, waiting for a savior. So thinking someone is going to come along and either a man or our parents or someone is going to give us money and so that we don't have to do it. That's definitely a big thing in the divine feminine world. And we feel almost dependent on getting our needs met outside of ourselves. So we really don't know how to meet our own needs. And the thing about that's ironic is we'll never get our needs met if we don't know how to meet our own needs. It's really interesting. So I want to talk for a minute about people pleasing and how people pleasing is really unprocessed pain, which is also codependency. It's seeing your value through other people's view of you and other people's happiness of you. So this also is really, really so prevalent with women who have some emotional wounding is because, I'm trying to move my seat here. So we learn very early on from our parents to learn how to be a good girl. I talked a bit about this yesterday. To learn how to be a good girl, we learned that if we did the right things, then our mom would be happy. And so we do the same thing now in business. And we learn just that our worth is totally dependent on how other people view us and how other people see us. So then comparison and feeling like a fraud or not feeling good enough really kind of dictate how much we go out there and give our gifts, because we're just so worried and concerned with what other people think. And this isn't at all a shaming. You shouldn't shame yourself if this is happening. You learned that so early on in life. You learned that worrying about what other people think, was the way that you were going to get love and affection, which is a survival need. Without it, you would die. It's a primal need, okay? It's so important to understand that, to not shame yourself why you're a people pleaser, why you've learned to be empathic, why you've learned to really orient toward other people and make sure they're happy over yourself. This is something you were trained to do as a child to survive. And now it's time to give that shit up. Now it's time to heal that wound. To become so connected to yourself that you meet your own needs first, that you're able to locate yourself in yourself. You orient toward yourself first in every relationship, meaning clients, your online business, your relationship. You orient toward yourself first. And again, like I said, we'll talk about boundaries a little bit more tomorrow, but those are in bed together. This idea that when you start orienting toward yourself, you start getting comfortable and you start understanding what your needs are. You start getting courage to speak your needs, which also includes boundaries, what's okay and what's not okay. Learning to say no. Whoa, right? Like as a child, it wasn't like okay for me to not do something that was told that I was supposed to do, you know? Like that wasn't okay. I didn't have a voice, really. I didn't have a truth, really. I was supposed to do what I was told. And this is really stunting toward any woman, right, who wants to express her truth now. Because her truth has just been conditioned to be what other people think is the truth. What other people will think is okay. What other people will agree with. You know, don't want to ruffle any feathers, don't want to cause a fight, don't want to have conflict, don't want to make someone upset, don't want to hurt someone. And so we're orienting all the time toward other people. So clearing codependence is really about becoming located in yourself first. And this is clearing codependency with your relationship with money and clearing codependency in any other relationship that you have. You know, even if you know that you have a relationship right now that has some codependency in it, it's the pathway out of that is starting to become more connected to yourself than focused on how the other person is and what the other person is doing. And now I'm not saying to become self-centered and not care about the needs of your partner or the needs of anyone else. That's not what this is. But the only way to find the calibration back to sovereignty, back to your own truth, back to your heart, back to your energy is to become located in yourself. And so, like I mentioned this earlier, but one of the final points I want to make is like one of the things that we learn to do to survive as a child is to intellectualize and analyze and move into our head. You know, it was like we stunted our growth inside of our body because we couldn't process the pain. Like the pain, the literal physical pain of our needs not being met was so painful at that age, especially. We, again, like I said yesterday, we don't have the capacity at 5 like we do today to handle some of the pain that can come our way. It's just like our brain is not even developed, our emotional body's not developed, you know, fully. So we didn't have the capacity to process, and therefore we move out of the body. That's the only way we know, even now, that probably still happens to you if you have a lot of wounds and trauma running. Your body literally can't handle the pain, and so you numb out in some way, and everyone numbs out in different ways if the wounds are still really running the show. But as a child, you numbed out, you know, distracted. A lot of times you just like move into the head and think about something or go play and just avoid because the pain is so much. So as an adult, we also learn to do that. We numb out, and one of the ways that we learn to do that and condition in society is to think a lot, to analyze things. When we're doing that, though, we're not actually connecting to the wound that's living in the body. And I believe that like women in their sacred sensual pleasure center is the most potent power on the planet today. And one of the reasons that, you know, so many of us are experiencing you know, we're not experiencing pleasure or femininity in our business and making money and like giving our gifts is because we've turned off the connection with our body. We're trying to make success happen from our head, and it's like really not a fun way to create success. And you know, there's absolutely ways to like turn on your magnification powers through your body. And that's what started to happen for me when I started doing the somatic healing. So I was like faced with the wounds that I didn't even know that were living there. Once I started doing the body work, it sort of opened up so many channels that I never even knew existed for me. And my whole energy field changed, my whole sexual experience changed, who I was attracting in my life changed. So yeah, it's really amazing. And I believe that turned on, you know, integrated, embodied women are the women who are gonna make the most lasting impact on the planet. Because when we're in our, we're alive sexually and erotically, we're actually connected the most with nature, in my opinion. Everything is flourishing around us, and is kind of mating and has that energy going. This is a natural energy, and we've turned it off. A lot of us from trauma, and we need to learn, to come back into our bodies. It's the most potent form. So if you come into our business programs, you'll hear me talk. Sometimes I'll recommend that people work with a therapist alongside of our work, because I will always disclaim that I'm not a therapist. I've done a lot of work in this area, but I'm don't pretend or want to represent that I'm the therapist. I just love that we bring this work into our business programs. But I highly recommend people work with a somatic psychotherapist or someone who's body-based. And so if you're listening to this and you're thinking of actually doing therapy on some of the pieces that we're talking about, which I highly recommend, I don't recommend you just look for a psychotherapist or someone who's doing just talk therapy, which is awesome and fine, but I have only worked with somatic psychotherapists in the last 5 years or so, and it doesn't mean we don't talk. We talk, but they know how to bring me into the body and experience where the wound is still alive in my body. And I think that this is really important for any of you who are wanting to do this work. All right, so I just want to give you a couple to-dos or challenge items for today, okay? I would love to hear if you feel like you have, and I'd love you to put this in the comments, I'd love you to contemplate anything that I said here today, and if there's codependency running your relationship with money and business, and how you might be avoiding your relationship with your purpose and what you're here to do in the world. I'd love to hear that. I'd love you to share that in the comments with me. And I'm going to just repeat the same body work to start healing some of these wounds. So yesterday we talked about acknowledging and understanding. So having an understanding of this really sends light bulbs, off. And this is a really important part of the healing. It's okay, wow, never realized that before. And so that's starts it, and your higher self has you here listening to this, what, your higher self knows exactly the healing that you're calling into your life and you're ready for right now. Continue to do the parent relationship with your inner child. So starting to reparent that inner little girl. So one of the things that I was doing even a year ago was when I found myself procrastinating on growing my business. Instead of shaming myself, I started to talk with the little girl who didn't want to do the work, didn't want to do it. And she told me a lot of things. She let me know, literally as soon as I gave her space, she's like, I'm scared and I don't trust you. And I don't know if we're going to be okay. And things keep changing and I don't trust you. That was a big one. And so you might have a similar thing happen, and you have to reestablish trust with that little girl of you, because for so long you've been ignoring her. There's a lot of reason that she has not to trust you, a lot of reason. And it doesn't mean that you need to shame yourself, but yeah, she doesn't know if you're really listening to her now. She's going to keep asking you that, okay? So you got to stay near her. And then breath and movement. So moving the breath through the body when you feel it. I always feel tightness in my chest, like I said yesterday. When I'm starting to feel a wound, I'm starting to feel triggered, starting to feel panic, starting to feel unsafe for whatever reason. There's a whole host of triggers that can set it off for me. And the breath is the way that I start to work with it instead of react to it. I work with it. I turn toward it. I recognize it as a sign. I recognize it as my body, my mind, my soul, my highest self trying to talk with me and heal this, trying to integrate it actually. Trying to integrate it into my being now so that we can come all together and then move forward together. And if you think of it like that, it's like the fragmented pieces of you are like things that are falling off of you, like dragging you. And those pieces of you just want to like come back to the whole. And so you just got to bring her back to the whole. You know, you got to bring all those pieces back to the whole. And then you can go forward really easily. It's really amazing. And movement, so breath and then movement. For me, it's dancing. Whatever it is for you, you can be just like get on your hands and knees on the ground on a yoga mat and just do circles with your hips and move with your breath. It's really important to start to move some of this energy that's inevitably going to start moving from just even the talks we're having right now, to start moving that through your body, okay? My business challenge to you, and I'd love you to share with me in the comments today. I'd love you to share with me what's your money goal. Stretch, yet realistic amount of money you want to call in to your experience. And while you contemplate that, I want you to think about what comes up for you. If there's fears that come up for you, and there's also resistance that comes up for you, like, I'll have to work really hard and I don't want to, I don't think it's possible, you know? So if it's $10,000, then you can think, okay, so that would mean I'd need like 2 clients at $5,000, and oh God, is that possible? I've tried it before, it hasn't worked. And so like just asking yourself these kinds of questions, okay? But I'd love to know, just, you can share more in the comments if you want to about that, but the main thing I want to know is what's your money goal, because I want to hold space for that with you, okay?